Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline, New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. And boy, do we have some headlines these days. New Haven is ticking mad about the shooting of an unarmed woman in a car in New Hallville amid a hail of bullets fired by Hamden and Yale cops. Two people who have been following this incident closely and following criminal justice issues in New Haven for decades are here in the WNHH studio to help us make sense of it. Say good morning to retired Assistant Police Chief John Vallecca and the Reverend Boise Kimber. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning. Good morning, Paul.
All right. So I guess, John, I got to get your bike up there. Okay. And this story's been happening fast. It's been changing fast. Yep, we got you good. There have been a lot of new developments in it. The latest we have is that, as far as we know, early Tuesday morning, 4 in the morning, there was some kind of dispute outside a gas station in Hamden, right over the line near Southern. So there was some kind of argument. The guy who runs the store says that a young man had pretended he had a gun. He pointed his finger and tried to rob a delivery man. The young man said, "No way." We had an argument about something else, but he left. A call went out. Honda Civic. Let's find it. A little while later, a Hamden cop crosses the town line to stop the car, puts out a broadcast on the radio. A Yale police officer comes. They box in the car. They tell the man to come out, and the man obeys. The man starts to come out of the car, and a hail of bullets starts flying. As John, as you know, once bullets start flying, the big issue is not how many bullets are fired as much as why do you start? Because once you start, police are trained to fire like mad, even if it's another cop who's firing and they don't know it.
I don't know if they're trained to fire
which
like
is the
mad,
problem of starting to fire. So bullets are coming from all directions. The guy goes, "Holy crap!" So he goes back in the car.
Right.
The bullets keep flying, and they strike his passenger,
Right.
a young woman, in the torso. She has to go to the hospital. And there is not any claim at all that there was any disobeying cops. There was no weapon found in the car. And they arrested the guy, but then they let him go because they didn't have any credible claim against him. Now, Reverend Kimber, you lead you're a prominent clergy member in town. You've been since the 80s. You've been very involved in public discussions about criminal justice. You immediately convened pastors in New Hallville to raise questions about this. You led a protest march, more are coming. I'd like to ask you, gentlemen, as far as we know now, what is your take on the shooting?
Well, Paul, I think we have to begin to talk about how disgusting and how painful and how upsetting we are that something of this nature would happen to what we feel is two innocent persons, and so we have not gotten beyond that fact as of yet. But we do know that we have to give the state attorney and the Connecticut State Police Department the opportunity to come in and really try to make some sense out of what has transpired.
And we should note that whenever there's an officer-involved shooting, that's a phrase we're getting to learn now. Whenever there's an officer-involved shooting, a cop shoots a gun, it is now regular practice that the state's attorney comes in, the state police come in, they work together, and they conduct their own investigation. They took the body cam video. There was a video that was published in The Independent on Channel 8 that really contradicted the police account of what happened. Teresa Franklin writes in, "Did we see the same video? The passenger was purposely shot." That's an interesting claim. They said they wanted to hit the passenger. I was curious what... You watched the video, right?
Yeah, well...
Do you think they on purpose tried to shoot the woman?
Well, two things, Paul. One is that we have seen the video that has come from the building. Two, there are two other videos, and hopefully...
What are the other two videos?
Well, the officers, both of them should have had...
now, tell me...
their camera on.
I'm going into dangerous territory here. So, alert, this might not be true. I am told the Yale police body camera was not turned on until after the key parts. And one thing that's concerning about body cameras is that we all wanted them because we said this will hold police accountable. A lot of police departments, including the former chief of Hamden, wanted them. Because they say very often police are unfairly accused. And videos show that. And in fact, we have seen both kinds of things.
Right.
But it is the perspective of the officer. What was so powerful, and see if you guys agree with me about this, I thought what was so powerful about that surveillance office video is it showed what the Hamden officer did, that under no threat, although in his mind he's probably worried the guy had a gun, under no threat he started firing. Now, you would not have watched his body movements on his own body camera. So what I'm wondering is, just like with the Mueller report, are we putting too much stock in what we don't know when in fact powerful evidence is staring us right in the face already that this was a horrible shoot?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Reverend Kimmer when you say that the. Let me back up just a minute. When I first started, New Haven would handle these jobs if there was, if it wasn't a fatality. We we were able to maintain a little bit more control and give more information.
Does that mean
to our
that
community.
you don't go into another community even if someone like
No.
the report they got, and obviously it turned out to be very, very wrong. Based on what you hear, you're worried, what if some guy's going around going to shoot somebody? Now, there is no report he's going around shooting someone, but if
Right.
someone did an attempted robbery with a gun. So they feel that might be dangerous. It's 4 a.m.
Okay.
You're right at the
Right.
Hamden line. And when you were on the start of the force 20 years ago, John, was it not the practice to go those extra feet and just notify other police that you're there?
Well, you can enter another jurisdiction to conduct an investigation. Whether we're hung up on whether you can do that to make an arrest. There are certain parameters that you have to make an arrest. This looks like it was an investigation. However, the caveat to that is the Hamden Police Department is notorious for doing this. This has been a problem with the Beck since
For doing what?
Coming into New Haven and going a little bit further than they should go. And then leaving without telling us, So, in 2010, I wrote a memorandum of understanding between the two police departments to recognition that some crimes happen, and they do jumping back forth over the line, specifically to avoid jurisdiction, right? However, in this instance, you're going pretty deep into another jurisdiction without alerting the police department, and then.
Well, they put a broadcast out, which is why the Yale cop was there.
Understood, but we're all patched into the same radio system. I don't think that there's any reason why we shouldn't have been notified or we shouldn't have been assisting.
In other words, you're saying that it's not enough to put a broadcast out. They should have made a supervisor
Right.
at Hamden, because these supervisors monitor this stuff, right?
Yeah,
Should a Hamden
yeah.
supervisor have called?
Have called the New Haven supervisor and said, "Listen, we're looking for this." Usually,
It wasn't a high-speed chase either.
no, but usually what would happen was they would pass the information to us, and then we would look for it. If they had, hypothetically, let's say they had information of where a car was specifically, and they were going to enter the jurisdiction to look for it, they would call us, and we would pick them up at the line and go with them. Right now, getting back to
Because again, this was not a fast-moving case where you would lose the thing.
no,
Go
but I
ahead.
don't want to get away from the reality of the situation here. Is like I began to say, the Reverend was saying we have to let the states attorney. That's true. All right, but we can't deny what's on the video and what we see. In hopes that there's going to be some mysterious video out there that we haven't seen it that's going to change the whole parameters of the situation. This is not a good thing that happened. Let's be real clear about that. We don't need more videos than we already have.
But I do think that we have to go through the investigation.
Sure, I agree.
To actually find out what actually happened. I do agree with the fact that the Hamden Police Department is out of control. It's totally out of control. It is the good old boy network still in Hamden. It is the police commissioners who are in Hamden, along with whoever else is to pick a chief. My understanding is that Hamden wanted to pick a chief from the inside, knowing that the chief of that they picked did not have the experience to lead the force. And here we are again with Hamden coming into New Haven. This Hamden is not New Haven. And we are grateful and we are thankful that neither of these individuals were killed.
Yeah, because that could have easily happened. You
Sure,
spray
of
a
course it
dozen,
could've.
14 bullets at a car, and when it starts when the guy opens the door, very easily someone could have died.
And so, Paul, you look at this fact, and that's, I'm grateful that there were cameras that caught this and that gave us some kind of view of what took place.
It would have been so different.
Now you do know that these officers have cameras, and when they get into a real situation, they cut their cameras off. So what I'm looking and saying that
there was a case like that in Hamden. What was the name of the guy from New Haven who they turned their cameras off when they were? He was suggesting he was roughed up a little while ago.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if that's the only camera that we got, the pictures that we see that was on the building, then it becomes a problem here.
And actually, it will be. They will release this video. Well, I want to get into that a little longer because that is a point. It's not the main point. Because we will see. I think we're going to see more clearly from the officer's video the actions of the man who came out of the car and went back in. None of his actions have been called into questions. We're going to see that more fully.
I don't like the Reverend said. I'm not sure about who cuts cameras. I'm not saying that doesn't happen by any means. I don't know what happened.
Oh, we just had it in New Haven with the Edgewood Park Bridge when they
understood completely.
Picked up. They planted some evidence and threw it in the water, and they turned off the camera.
Right. Okay. But in an incident like this, a shooting incident that materializes very quickly, it's almost very much a possibility they may have not turned the camera on instead of having the camera on and cutting it off, which is another issue with the camera. However, both of those scenarios present a situation that's a problem because we're looking for camera footage. We don't have it now. So that's something we
right. And I think we all agree. It will be useful. We all agree. It'll be useful to see the Hamden cop's camera. We're going to see head on. And he's made no allegation. He just said the guy abruptly exited, so he started firing.
And it will be interesting to see how these two officers write their report of this incident.
Well, you're right.
Abruptly exited was the word.
Right.
Hamden cops said that the man abruptly exited when he asked them to come out, and then he showered the thing with
Reverend
bullets.
Kimmer makes a very good point now. What are we going to see when the investigation starts to take shape and we start to see videos versus what is said initially? And that's, in my personal... Listen, it's always a problem when we do a shooting like this, but it's compounded by the fact that if this doesn't line up, then we have real issues here because now something has to be done because that's too much, to be quite honest with you. You can't, just recklessly, go into another jurisdiction, regardless, even if it's your jurisdiction. Okay, you can't just recklessly because you're in fear without a tangible, a real identifiable threat, open fire on two unarmed people, and then lie about it. That's not how that works.
You think he lied?
Well, Paul.
Because the key question here is going to be...
All I know is this. Hang on.
A lot of it's going to be like the Malik Jones, partly his perception. He's saying exited abruptly, which won't hold up.
Hang on.
I don't know if that's a lie.
I don't know the inside of this investigation. I know what the media's reported. There's a video up, and underneath the video it says, the officer says, he exited the car abruptly, whatever that means. But the video I see doesn't see... I don't see anybody out of the car.
Right.
Okay.
Oh no, but we are.
And the kid
firmly...
is on WTNH saying that he was going to get out of the car. The shots rang out. He dove back in.
Yeah, dove back in.
That looks a lot more like what I'm seeing on the video.
Yeah, he started coming out.
Yeah, but
he dove back
Paul,
in.
you got to look at the fact who discharged their weapon first. It really, to me, it does not seem as though the Hamden cop discharged his weapon first.
Yeah, that's a tough call there.
That's a tough call there. It looks to me, and looking at the video, that the Yale police officer came in from the other way.
Right.
And it seems to me that the Yale police officer might have, and I'm not sure, just looking, might have discharged his weapon first that triggered the Hamden police officer to shoot and to run, to cover because shots was coming from another angle.
That is very possible.
There's no doubt in my mind in watching that video that when the Hamden officer rather is firing and he's retreating, there's got to be fire coming from the front. There has to be.
Right.
It's just a matter of who he gets out of the car very quickly and begins to fire. So it makes you wonder why he was so sure that he should be firing. It wasn't as if he gave commands and stuff like that. But let's be honest. I heard we talked about training the past couple. This is not a training issue. There's nothing this officer did that is indicative of police training. This is poor tactics, fear, and quite frankly, if you were to ask me, and this is my opinion, it's implicit bias. and I know everybody involved is black here, but there's a bias that happens when you jump into the town of New Haven, city of New Haven, by other jurisdictions. We've seen it my entire career. I've seen it. As soon as they cross into New Haven, everybody's a criminal, right?
Right.
And the way they act and the way they pull a car over in our city is much different than the way they would do it in their jurisdiction. And that's not an opinion. That's from me watching that years and years and years.
Yeah. I think that we've got to come to grips. Hamden got to stay the hell out of New Haven. This ain't their jurisdiction. We as taxpayers pay officers to protect us in New Haven. We don't pay taxes in Hamden for Hamden to protect us. Hamden is not going to protect anybody in New Haven, especially those who live in Dixwell, Newhallville, because they already have this perception that we're all criminals.
And I want to let some listeners weigh in here. You're listening to the Reverend Boise Kimber and retired New Haven Assistant Police Chief John Valecka on Dateline New Haven, WNHH FM, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live stream, newhavenindependent.org. Kia Henley writes, now we can turn this into a beef between the police. William Outlaw writes, the two officers are going to resign and get their pensions, and the taxpayers are going to pay for the lawsuit.
Sure.
I just hope
they have enough time to get
well, one of them's young, the other one's had the years. And I just hope and pray the next time someone gets shot or killed in New Haven, the community demands justice and protests the same way. Laurie Sweet says, so what is the point of having cameras if you don't want the footage? Diamond Dave Lyon says it would be nice to see dash and body camera footage. Thank everyone for listening. So, John Valecka, you brought up the issue of race.
Right.
Now, Reverend Kimber spoke a lot of what I was thinking in those first hours. He had a press conference. And one thing I was thinking was, well, are they trained differently in Hamden? Now, it turned out that the officer from Hamden,
right,
by the way,
he was trained
in New Haven.
Bias, right.
He was a New Haven cop.
Mm-hmm.
He went after a year to Hamden because they're stealing our cops. So that was one issue. The other issue is that I think you can't ignore race in America. There's a black neighborhood, a black man, a black woman. They were stopped doing nothing wrong and were unarmed.
Black officers,
and they were shot at.
Right?
But that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so
does
we're
it
not
matter? Does it matter that the cops were black?
No, we're not talking racism. We're talking implicit bias. There's two totally different things. Implicit bias is not bound by race. Mm-hmm. Implicit bias is bound by the stereotypes that you've developed over the years, and you
but
carry
those stereotypes
with you
are
into
partly
the job.
based on race. That you can have a
Sure,
black officer
absolutely.
doing the same actions. I think if this were my neighborhood in Westville,
That's my point.
and it were white people, I don't think. Well, there was once a cop there who might have, but otherwise, I don't think they would shoot up the car.
Listen, Paul. You know, we're talking about race, and we're talking about fear. Cops are at fear. The individuals in the car are scared to death, and look what happens. So, in the fact of talking about race, is a black community, is a crime community, is cops who don't understand Dixwell, Newhallville, or the black community. Would this have happened on the campus of Yale? Would it have happened in Westville? So you gotta look. You gotta look at the fact that race plays some dividend in this.
Right, and that's the foundation of implicit bias. Is a stereotype. Certain areas, certain people act a certain way. So what the Reverend is saying, we don't think that when we're in Westville, although it could be very much the same thing. But we do think it as soon as we get to Dixwell. And there's a way in the academy where we could test our officers for that. And we could train them against that, but we don't. So this is not a training issue. Listen, those were the worst tactics I've ever seen. All right, you pull up to a car, he jumps out of the car. You got guys are shooting at each other. One guy's got a roadblock going. So you can't say, listen, we're going to retrain these guys, because obviously their training isn't playing into what they do out on the street anyway, because they're not using any tactics, right? And then when things get hairy because of the situation that you put yourself in, now you're afraid of your own life, and you're making negligent decisions.
That's what I felt was
frankly.
discussion in the Malik Jones in 1997. I really felt that we weren't allowed to talk about that aspect. An officer put himself in a situation, boxing in a driver who knew nothing about after high-speed chase, running up to a car, breaking a window, and firing at point-blank range. Nobody talked about that tactics. It kept getting switched back.
We haven't talked about it because there's no criminal violation for it, but I could tell you that there are many departments, not in New Haven's, but there are other departments who have made policies that now when you chase a vehicle, the first 2 officers that are involved in that pursuit are not to exit their vehicle and take this person into custody because they're too amped up and their emotions are running too high and they make poor decisions, right? So we've recognized the issues that they have there. But don't forget, in that case, Paul, he put himself in a bad position. But what triggered the shooting was, from what the officer says, is the vehicle coming at him. He's in danger.
No. What he said is, I got to go to hell look. No. The vehicle was not being driven. He had boxed the vehicle in on an incline.
And
it was rolling at under 5 miles.
Going in reverse or something like that.
No, it was 5 miles an hour rolling after he boxed it in. And he said the reason he fired was because he got a, quote, go to hell look. That's how he interpreted it when he ran at a car, jumped on the hood, smashed the window, and pointed a gun in the guy's face. He said he had a fire because he got a go to hell look.
So, I mean, this is just absurd. A go to hell look. I'm looking at you now, Paul, and telling you to go to hell.
Yeah, but I'm not armed.
Well, you don't have to be armed.
I got this. I got a pen.
Well, but Paul,
and
come
yesterday
on.
was exited abruptly. That's the phrase he used.
So what we're saying today, if a cop stops me and I give him a go to hell look, he got a right to shoot me?
Right.
No.
I'm saying that when people talked about the Malik Jones case, that was the view from East Haven.
Well, we know
Paul,
we know of the racism in New Haven in East Haven. We know what happens in Hamden. We're surrounded by these little towns that have the majority of their officers white, who do not understand the inner city. But when they do come in the inner city and stop someone, the adrenaline goes.
Can I say that that's
Agreed.
true about the New Haven police force as well? The leadership's not white, but a majority of cops who are white, not from the city.
Well, here's when we talk about New Haven, Paul, we meet once a month to talk about what is happening within our community with the New Haven Police Department. And just recently, within the last 2 weeks, I met with Chief Reyes after Chief Campbell left and said to him, stay on top of this, because the worst thing that you could have is a cop killing a black in our neighborhood. Wasn't New Haven, but it was Hamden and Yale shooting. How are we going to be supportive of police officers when they fear us and we fear them?
John P. Stowe pushes back on you. He writes in, state statute allows officers to effect felonies. I think he means effect an arrest on.
Effect felony arrest, right.
54-1F.
As long as
anywhere
probable cause
this
is established.
idea, anywhere. This idea that cops believe everyone is a criminal in New Haven is an irresponsible statement.
He could say what he wants, and that's his opinion. All right, but I've witnessed implicit bias. Okay, I know what it is. I've seen it. He's off the mark with 54-1F. You have to have probable cause established before you make that arrest. I mean,
can it be probable cause? Okay, I'm just asking.
You can't jump the line and look for probable cause. You have to have probable cause established already.
Okay, now I'm asking this devil's advocate question because obviously I completely agree that you don't stop a car and start shooting at it because you heard a report that someone might have had a gun somewhere. Obviously, I don't think this was a good shoot. To push back, just so I understand, if you get a call that turns out not to be accurate, that a man might have had a gun and tried to rob somebody,
right,
and he was driving a certain car, is that probable cause under that statute to stop that car?
Yes.
Okay, so where we
probable
know
cause under that, it's not probable cause under that statute. That statute, what he's referring to, only talks about outside of jurisdictions arrests. Okay, misdemeanor, hot pursuit, felony, probable cause established. He's off the mark. He's misinterpreting. Okay,
was there a probable cause here or not?
We don't know. He's making an investigative stop. He doesn't know who's in the car.
So
he needs to get an identification from the person who was the victim. He needs to talk to the person, see where he was. We don't even know if that was the same car. It's a car that looks like that car.
Right. And what did the store owner say? What did the store owner say? I had an argument with a black guy. He looked like he had a gun. I was afraid. They called the police. Hamden police give the description, and Hamden police starts following this individual into New Haven. First of all, Hamden should have contacted New Haven. Hey, we're following this car. We got a complaint in reference to this car. Did not do it. How did Yale pick up on this? Were they listening to the scanner?
They were.
Radio?
They are stationed at Science Park. Science Park is close to this area. So all cops here on the radio were stopping a car here. We could use backup, whatever. And the closest cop happened to be at Science Park.
But does Yale have the jurisdiction to come in because they hear that something is going on?
We're obviously going to agree that they shouldn't have acted like this. I have a larger problem.
No, I'm asking.
They are sworn police officers. My problem is that they are not publicly. They have public rights to arrest and shoot us, but they don't follow the same freedom of information rules that regular police departments do because the Yale Corporation, they fought me.
Right.
They try never, and it's not the police chief's fault. He's a great guy. The corporation that's always worried about its image and its ability to raise money from hedge funds, I'm not making this up, have blatantly abused and not followed the law on public scrutiny of other police departments while they have gained the legal right to shoot or arrest anyone in New Haven.
So let me just interject quickly before we get the anti-cop rant that this is an anti-cop
Not
podcast.
anti-cop, anti-Yale.
No, I mean this entire holistic conversation here. I think it's worthy to note out what the kid Witherspoon said on WTNH. He said, "I see black people getting shot all across the country. I never thought it would happen to me. At least not here, I didn't." So what does that tell you? He's comfortable in New Haven because the New Haven PD has bridged the gap like that. Okay? And it was irresponsible. It's not irresponsible for me to call this officer out because you know what I'm doing? I'm standing up for every good police officer that does things the right way. Okay? Because these kind of incidents put all those good cops at risk. Because I'm going to tell you something. This community, you keep doing this, people are not going to sit by and take this.
John,
they're going to respond.
John, this was just bad.
Right.
I don't care how you look at it. It was just bad police investigation. And it happened to be 4:00 in the morning, happened to be someone saying that this is what's happening. It is bad. It's terrible.
And I'm telling you, what's irresponsible is giving a backbone to those actions I saw on the tape. I'm sorry. I know police officers make mistakes. I'm the first one to tell you about my mistakes. You know that. But I'm going to tell you this. If you do something wrong, admit what you did, say you screwed up, and you're going to work to correct it. Don't start, mincing words and putting statements out there and trying to make this look like this is an anti-cop thing. This is not an anti-cop thing. This is an anti-right and wrong thing.
Was there a need to box in that car?
You should never box a car in.
I mean, why? They you could have easily stopped the car.
We have our general order says, and I'm sure Hamden's is very close. We don't put up roadblocks.
And New Haven has a no chase policy. So why didn't you just put your light on probable cause to stop the car?
Listen, if you're driving down the street, why doesn't the officer follow? He sees the car like we've all done a million times in our career. We turn around, we turn our lights on, we pull the car over, we wait for backup, we go up to the vehicle. How come that doesn't happen? And how can anybody who's pro-police call in now and say and defend those actions?
All right, but what they're listening to in any case is Dateline New Haven, WNHH FM 103.5, live streamed at newhavenadmint.org. We're talking about the big story in New Haven this week. Hamden cop comes over the line and with a Yale cop shoots up a car of two unarmed people and hits one of them in the torso. And John Vallecca, retired assistant police chief in New Haven, Reverend Boise Kimber, an outspoken voice on criminal justice issues for a decade, are here to talk about. I want to ask you folks about the state prosecutor, Patrick Griffin. I know that he meets with people. I believe he's met with you, Reverend Kimber. I know that he has a reputation as an honest man, a good man. I am highly critical of how he has dealt with this. And let me tell you why. And it has nothing to do with him as a person. It has nothing to do with his honesty. It has to do with what century we're living in. Yesterday, there was a effort to give the public some information after a long time of not doing it and bad information going on the internet. There was, really wrong information apparently that they had shot up the guy, that they had shot the woman 14 times. So Patrick Griffin meets with the mayors and police chiefs in Hamden and New Haven and Yale. And then the officials come out to speak to the press. But he doesn't show. And he doesn't want to be talking about it because he wants to preserve the integrity of his investigation. And he's an old school guy. He's been around 20 years. So he says he doesn't want to release body camera video too soon because if you go interview other people, if they see that video, they might change their story. He doesn't want to have any information go out that might make an investigation less than pure. He doesn't want to stand up in public and say something by accident. He started in the last century. The reality of the world has changed now. Information moves much faster, and a community gets very upset very fast when they're not getting crucial information. Now, John Valeka and I, Reverend Kimber, have talked about this for years and had a good record of it when he was the police department, that police too often have the legitimate concern that releasing information will jeopardize a pending investigation and then go so overboard that they worry about what theoretically can happen if any information goes out, and a result really hurts the public. I'll give you an example. Body camera videos. The former chief of Hamden said, we want these so we quickly can get good information out to people before everyone gets the wrong idea and it permanently becomes the wrong idea. But every time there's a controversial case now, their department and others say we can't release it because the investigation's going on, so it doesn't serve that purpose. But in New Haven, we have had cases at the bus stop when an African-American man said he was mishandled, the Edgewood Bridge, other cases where in the bodega when the taser was fired in contravention of policy on a man who was high. In each case, the police said to me, not blanket. They didn't say any information, any video can never come out for a long time. They said very specifically there are a few people we have to ask a few questions who we have to make sure don't see that video. So they agree we will quickly do that first. And then we will very promptly release the video. And it worked. And that rather than just having a blanket idea that all information has to stay secret, then forever they could keep information. Like John Rowland, when he became governor, he had been arrested for domestic violence. The police chief in that town was his fundraiser. He was not arresting Rowland. There was no investigation, but he said it's an open case, an investigation. Releasing that report will jeopardize the investigation. So for years, they did nothing on it. They didn't release the report because it was an open investigation. So Patrick Griffin, I know his intentions are good. Do you agree with me that they should be providing all the facts they can and just being very careful and explain to us why certain information can't come out?
First of all, Paul, no. The second of all,
you don't agree with me?
No, I don't agree with your whole story of that. Let me say what I do agree with. One, I have spoken with Patrick Griffin for the last couple of days. I've met with him in reference to this. At this particular time, the state is doing the investigation. Pat Griffin has to wait on the state to send him information. He said to me that this will not be a long investigation because I see what is happening out here. I will come out soon as the state get the body cameras, and we will make a report. Now, the other piece about that, I do not think that Pat Griffin should be on either side because he's got to
right, but he
probably
should speak publicly.
try.
He should tell us.
Well, and
he should be skilled enough to know what he can't say and what he can't say.
No, but I do think that, and I'm in defense of him at this point because Paul, I think that he has done more in reference to helping us in this community than the last state attorney. Black people could not even meet with the last state attorney to talk about what was happening in our community.
Okay, Reverend Kimber, the hours after this shooting, a state trooper went on TV, and he gave a lot of facts.
Okay.
He told us that the official version, which then got contradicted by video, he said an officer was filing a complaint of an armed robbery and that he asked someone to come out of the car and the man exited abruptly.
But Paul, It was turned over to the investigation was turned over to the state.
And
though.
that was a state trooper.
Right.
He gave us some facts, but not other facts. They wouldn't give us the name of people. They wouldn't say what they were charging the person with. So they selected the facts. So it's not true that Pat Griffin gave no information.
But
they
Pat
gave
Griffin
partial skewed
But Pat
information.
Griffin is under the state. Pat Griffin has a boss that they took over this investigation.
He doesn't have a boss. As
Yeah,
you know,
he does.
Reverend Kimber, the police work with the prosecutors, and the prosecutors
We're talking
lay
about
down
a
the
state
terms.
investigation.
And
now.
we're talking about a state prosecutor who works with the
we're
investigators.
talking about a state
State police.
investigation, and that Pat has a boss.
No, he doesn't.
Who's the boss?
His boss is in his department.
No,
not
he
the
doesn't
state
have.
police.
He doesn't have a boss. He's in charge of the
The
investigation.
police have to.
entirely.
He's in charge of the investigation.
He
can
controls
tell
every
them.
aspect
He
of it.
But tell me
controls
about the
evidence.
state. But no.
He
the
works
state,
for the
the
Division
state
of
came in.
Judicial
But the
Department.
state came in and took over the
Right.
investigation.
Right.
He's the
And
state.
so,
he's
no.
the
So
state.
listen, Paul. The state came in and took over the investigation.
Right.
That means that Pat Griffin has to work along with the state because the evidence is going to the state.
And
the
he
state
is the state.
Well, Paul, come on.
No, Reverend Kimber,
No,
just to be
he's-
clear, he works for the Judicial
Let me make
Department.
it clear from I worked in this for many years. He's in charge. Period. End of story.
The cops go to him
the
and
state
get
police
permission
are
for
going
what
to come
they
in.
can
Major
do.
crimes are going to come in. They're going to report to the major crime troopers or their boss. Everybody at the end of the day reports to Pat Griffin.
And in other parts of the country, prosecutors are able to face cameras. They don't have to worry about screwing up. They know that in the 21st century, social media is getting bad information out right away. They know they have responsibility, that they have to be skilled enough as part of. I'm not talking about his intentions. I'm not talking about his character. I'm not talking about his honesty. We know he's a good man. He's operating in the 1900s. Carlton Stagger says the news and police can get any video of any kind if a crime is committed. Why can't this happen with the body camera? And
well, let me just jump in very
And by
quick
the way, I'm
to
not
the-
disagreeing
to
with
the-
Reverend Kimber about Griffin's outreach.
Listen,
I know he's a good
Reverend,
man.
Reverend Kimber has the opinion of everybody who is on the exterior of law enforcement because that's the way it's portrayed. Sometimes you need somebody in law enforcement to say, listen, here is the hierarchy. Put it this way, as the chief of detectives, when I was there in New Hampshire, they answered the state's attorney. I mean, they're essentially the chief law enforcement
And the state was state
officer.
police. The state's attorney tells the police, yes, you can go with that evidence.
Right.
No, we're not going to bring
So
an
there are-
indictment. Yes, we're going to bring an
So
indictment.
there are
you
some
have
very
to go,
real
You
things
had
going
fights
on.
with the state's attorney.
I
He used
had
to
a lot
tell
of
you,
fights with
we don't
Mike
like the
Dillon,
evidence
sure.
you produced and what evidence you can come
Because
forward.
as Reverend Kimber acknowledged, there was a complete indifference to the community from that. But I will tell you this, in Pat Griffin's defense, the fact that he's out there. Okay, I haven't seen the state's attorney out on the shooting
But he
team
didn't come
in
out.
a long time.
He didn't come out yesterday to the media, and I agree with
Well, he
Reverend
came.
Kimber.
Listen, give him a little credit. He came out when this thing went down, and I haven't seen that in my entire career. I'll
And
tell
I
you
agree.
directly.
And I agree with Reverend Kimber that he's making an effort to meet with the community. He does want to have a community-focused office. So I don't mean to dump on the guy.
And the guy spent the whole time on the scene.
Right.
You know, collecting evidence. But I don't want to get off the subject with Pat. I want to come back to these two officers and what took place. Let me tell you what I see on this video. I see the Yale cop coming in, and his car is hitting the passenger car.
Really?
Yeah, it bumped the passenger car. If you look at the video, and the car bounces back.
Yeah, send backward a little bit. Yeah.
And so what I'm looking at is that this Yale cop jumps out of the car. I don't know whether he was able to put his car in gear or not, but he jumps out of the car. I believe, and what I'm seeing is that the Yale cop starts shooting first.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on that. I'm not sure.
Hey, Paul, and I'm speculating based on the fact that the Hamden cop was just shooting and running.
Yeah.
So it looks to me
Like
like he didn't want to
cover,
get in the crossfire.
I think that's a very plausible theory. So
So
we're hoping video will help us understand more.
Right. So let's talk about that for just one more second. He's making a very real point by not letting these, because what you have to understand is what we don't see on this side is that, say this is a heater case, it's all over the place, right? So say he puts the video out. Now I'm sitting home with maybe 2 or 3 misdemeanor charges that are coming up soon. And now I contact the state's attorney and say, hey, I was out there that night. I saw the whole thing. What are you going to do for me with these cases? I go in and I just reiterate what I saw on the news. So he can't do that, right? There are certain things he cannot do. And I could tell you, I was very liberal with giving out information, but don't forget, I got to
There's
see
certain things you can't give out, but you told us why.
Right. But I also got to see every detail of the case, right? Which is he gets to see that. Now, we're not seeing every detail of the case. The only thing I would say I would like to have seen them, and he's probably got a good reason for not, is so when I used to say we can't give this out or we can't give this out, what I used to weigh was what's the community concern, right? So people would call me up and say, Valeka, listen, I got to bring my kids to school. I'm afraid, what's going on here? I would always try and weigh that against the importance to the case and the importance to the community, right? And so in this case, we got a video, and it appears as there's a statement from the police that conflict. I would only say I would have liked to have seen that cleared up just a little bit so that people in the community would know what's going on. But then again, he may not have that hard and fast just yet.
Taliaferro Jones writes in, the fact is the police don't I'm sorry. I'm trying to get I'm on my mouse here. Taliaferro, Rodney Williams, Paul, FYI, the driver was my nephew. Yes, Rodney, that's why I was calling you yesterday. Rodney, the fact is the police don't respect us as human beings. Taliaferro Jones says the car was hit by the Yale cop after the Hamden cop opened fire. I just watched again. So I guess we're going to need more video to kind of straighten this all out.
And Paul, that's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on the body camera.
Isaiah Hooks third says protocol protects the officer first.
True.
And that's the problem with the process, because what happens is bias. So Isaiah Hooks is agreeing with John Valeka. I'm trying to work this out. I'm kind of fighting for control of the mouse here. Taliaferro Jones says the state officer lied on camera, which I can't get over. Jackie Denby says, why was clergy asked not to march? Is that true? Were you asked not to march?
I wasn't asked not to march.
Okay. Taliaferro Jones says after the Hamden cop fires, the car rolled forward, then got bumped back by Yale cop car. So you did get on this, Reverend Kimber. Within hours of this news, you assembled New Harville ministers, you spoke out and talked about questions, you marched to the site. Why did you do that, and what are you planning to do next?
Well, we're meeting with Yale today at 2:30. We're meeting with the mayor Hamden.
Wait, who's we and who's Yale?
Clergy.
The Greater New Haven Clergy Association?
Right. Some of the clergy. We're not carrying a whole group of people. We're carrying 3 to 4 people to this meeting with Laura Zucker and Janet Linder. To talk about protocol, and to also talk about how are we going to really build this relationship with Yale and Dixwell and New Hallville, and those are the type of things. And then when we meet with the mayor in Hamden on Friday, we definitely have to talk about protocol. It's got to be the top of the agenda. Why does Hamden keep coming into New Haven? And anytime Hamden come into New Haven, it seems to be a big problem.
Right.
It's a mess up, and so we need to look at that, and from a community standpoint, and from the other side, we've got to let the investigation take place. But in the meantime, we've got to deal with relationships here.
Mm-hmm. John Valeka, any final thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think that you got to let this play out. You have to let them do their investigation, and I think the Reverend and the rest of the clergy are doing a good job to keep everybody, from from losing their mind until that happens.
Well, you guys both did a good job here today. I want to thank.
And Paul, just remember that we are certainly praying for both families, and that this could have been a lot worse than it is at this time. And I'm just asking this community, not against marching. If you're going to march, let's have peaceful marches, and let's get to make sure that the powers to be get to the bottom of this situation.
All right. We got the bottom some of it.
Yeah,
I hope to get the bottom of more.
Little by little.
I want to thank the Reverend Boise Kimber and retired New Haven Assistant Police Chief and State Senate Sergeant-at-Arms John Valeka for joining us today on WNHH Radio in Dateline, New Haven. And I want to wish everyone a happy Easter and Passover. As the season's starting, I'm now out of here tonight, going into the holiday zone, and we're all going to eat a lot, reflect on freedom and community, and maybe come out in a better place. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all weekend long.
I'm just retired.
At WNHH FM, your home for community radio.